Government of Karnataka. Welcome to Digital Learning, Department of Collegiate Education. Hello, dear students. Myself Khalil, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce. Uh, Course BBM, Semester 5th, Subject Management. Paper is Business Research Methods. Topic Research Methodology. Subtopic means today's topic Type 1 and Type 2 Error. I welcome you all in this session. As you are aware, in the previous session, we discussed about hypothesis. In hypothesis, meaning of hypothesis, definition of hypothesis, and characteristics or features of hypothesis. And students, in this session, in this lecture, we are going to discuss. We are going to talk about introduction relating to type 1 error, basic concepts concerning testing of hypothesis, meaning and definition of type 1 error, causes of type 1 error, probability of type 1 error, examples of type 1 error. Introduction. Students, statistical inference is a procedure that we try to make a decision about a population by using information from a sample which is a part of it. Okay. But in modern statistics, it is assumed that we never know about a population. Okay, and there is always a possibility to make different types of errors. And theoretically, a sample statistics may have values in a wide range because we may select a variety of different samples, which is called as sampling variations. To get practically meaningful inference, we present a certain level of errors. Okay, in statistical inference, we presume mainly two types of errors. The first one is type 1 error, the second one is type 2 errors. Before knowing about of types of errors, it is very essential to know some basic concepts concerning testing of hypothesis. Students, basic concepts in the context of testing of hypothesis are first one is null hypothesis. Okay, this null hypothesis is a hypothesis that proposes no relationship or difference between two variables. Means this is the conventional approach to making a prediction. It involves a statement. That statement says there is no relationship between two groups that the researcher compares on a certain variable. Means the hypothesis may also state that there is no significance difference. Okay, there is no significance difference when different groups are compared with respect to a particular variable. uh, we will take one example to understand this null hypothesis. Mm, See, if we are to compare method A with method B, okay, about its superiority, and if we proceed on the assumption that both methods are equally good, then this assumption is termed as null hypothesis. Means there is no difference in my method A and method B. Okay, both are equal. Okay, both are superior. That indicates the null hypothesis. Uh, the another example, students, and there is no difference in the academic performance of high school students who participates in extracurricular activities and those who do not participate in such activities is a null hypothesis. It asserts that there is no true difference, okay, in the sample statistic and population parameter under consideration. Hence, the word here null, which means invalid, void, or mounting to nothing. Okay, generally the null hypothesis is denoted or symbolized as H0. Means it is denoted by H. Sometimes it is also called as HO. Okay, H0. When to accept this null hypothesis and when to reject. Okay, acceptance or rejection decision. Acceptance, we have no evidence to believe. Okay, we have no evidence to believe otherwise and indicates that the difference is not significant and is due to sampling fluctuations. Means the acceptance of null hypothesis implies that we have no standard evidence or evidence to believe otherwise and indicates that the difference, okay, is not significant, is not that much significant, and that difference is due to sampling fluctuations. Here due to sampling means here the due to sampling means that the difference found in accidental arising out of the fluctuations of sampling. Rejection, the rejection of a null hypothesis implies that it is a false and indicates that the difference is significant. Okay, the second basic uh, concept concerning testing of hypothesis is alternative hypothesis, just opposite to null hypothesis. Okay, and this hypothesis proposes a relationship between two or more variable. Okay, in null hypothesis, that null hypothesis proposes what there is no relationship between two or more variables, and in alternative hypothesis, this hypothesis proposes a relationship exists between two or more variables. Okay, and this null hypothesis is opposite sorry this alternative hypothesis is opposite of a null hypothesis. Generally, the alternative hypothesis is symbolized or denoted by H1 or HA. Okay, in our slide it is HA. An alternative hypothesis is a statement which is a researcher is testing. Okay, this statement is true from the researcher's point of view and ultimately proves to reject the null hypothesis and to replace it with an alternative assumption. In this hypothesis, generally the difference between two or more variables is predicted by the researchers, such that the pattern of data observed in the test is not due to chance. Okay, students, we will use here one example to understand what is alternative hypothesis. See, for example, if a researcher was interested in examining the relationship between music and emotion, she or he may believe that there is a relationship between music and emotions. Here, this HA alternative hypothesis, also called as a research hypothesis, music at a fast tempo is rated by participants as being happier than music at a slow tempo. On the other hand, the null hypothesis, that is HO, music at a fast tempo and at a low tempo is rated the same. Okay, there is no difference, same in happiness by participants. The two hypotheses we propose us to test must be mutually exclusive. That is, when one is true, the other must be false, and we see that they must be exhaustive. They must include all possible occurrence, and the acceptance or rejection decision relating to alternative hypothesis. When to accept alternative hypothesis? Acceptance. Okay, its acceptance, alternative hypothesis acceptance, depends on the rejection of null hypothesis. A rejection, okay, its rejection depends on the acceptance of the null hypothesis. The next the next main concept concerning testing of hypothesis is the level of significance. Okay, this is a very important concept in the in the context of testing hypothesis. Simply, level of significance means that it is the maximum probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. Okay, rejecting the null hypothesis when it is true. Okay, means it is usually expressed as a percentage. Okay, and is denoted by symbol, Greek symbol alpha. Okay, a alpha, and is it should be chosen with great care, thought, and reasons. It is usually 5%. Okay, mm, and it is usually 5%. Sometimes researchers uses level of significance of 5%, sometimes 1%, depends on situation or circumstances. In case we take significance level at 5%, then this implies that HO, null hypothesis, will be rejected when the sampling result, okay, has a less than 0.05 probability of occurring if HO is true. In other words, the 5% level of significance means that a researcher is willing to take as much as a 5% risk of rejecting null hypothesis when it happens to be true. Therefore, dear students, the significance level or level of significance is the maximum value of probability of rejecting HO when it is true, and is usually determined in advance before testing the hypothesis. The next one is decision rule or test of hypothesis. Uh, Given a hypothesis, HO, null hypothesis, and an alternative hypothesis, that is HA, we make a rule which is known as decision rule, according to which we accept HO. uh, if we accept HO, default automatically uh, non alternative hypothesis is rejected, or reject HO. For example, okay, for example, if HO, null hypothesis, is that a certain lot is good, there are very few defective items in it. Okay, once again I will repeat. If HO is that a certain lot is good against HA, that the lot is not good, then we must decide the number of items to be tested and the criterion for accepting or rejecting the hypothesis. We might test 10 items in the lot, and plan our decision saying that if there are none means 0 or only one defective item among the 10, we will accept HO, otherwise we will reject HO. Okay, means this sort of basis is known as decision rule. Dear students, And these are all the main basic concepts in the context of testing of hypothesis. Now we will discuss about type 1 error. See, meaning and definition of type 1 error. Type 1 error in statistical hypothesis testing is the error caused by rejecting a null hypothesis. Okay, caused by rejecting a null hypothesis when it is true. Means a type 1 error occurs when we incorrectly reject null hypothesis. Okay, that is HO, and that is we reject HO when in fact it is true. Type 1 error is caused when the hypothesis that should have been accepted if accepted is rejected. Type 1 error generally denoted by uh, Greek letter alpha, okay, known as an error, okay, also called the level of significance of the test. This type this type of error is a false negative error where the null hypothesis is rejected based on some error during the testing. The null hypothesis is set to state uh, that there is no relationship between two variables, and the cause effect relationship between two variables, if present, is caused by chance. And this type 1 error occurs when the null hypothesis is rejected even when there is no relationship between variables. See, dear students, as a result of this error, the researcher might end up believing that the hypothesis works even when it does not. Okay, this is about the meaning and definition of type 1 error. The next concept is causes of a type 1 error. Okay, there are a few causes of a type 1 error. We will discuss one by one. Okay. See, type 1 error is caused when something other than the variable affects the other variable, which may results in an outcome that supports the rejection of the null hypothesis. Under these kind of conditions, okay, under such circumstances, the outcome appears to have happened due to some causes than chance. See, when in fact it is caused by chance. Before a hypothesis is tested, before a hypothesis is tested, a probability is set as a level of significance, which means that the hypothesis is being tested while taking a chance where the null hypothesis is rejected even when it is actually true. Okay, thus type 1 error might be due to chance or level of significance uh, mm, set before the test without considering the test duration and sample. This is about the causes of type 1 error. The next concept is probability of type 1 error. Probability of type 1 error. The probability of type 1 error is usually determined in advance. Okay, a researcher, he has to determine in advance probability of a type 1 error, and is understood as the level of significance of testing the hypothesis. See, if type 1 error is fixed at 0.05, that is 5%, it means that there are about 5 chances in the 100 that the null hypothesis, that is HO, will be rejected when it is true. Okay, means 5% chances. Okay, out of 100, 95% indicates confidence level. See, the rate or probability of type 1 error is symbolized by alpha, and is also termed the level of significance in the test. Okay, A represents a level of significance. It is possible to reduce by one error. Okay, sorry, it is possible to reduce type 1 error at a fixed size of sample. Means, however, while doing so, the probability of uh, type 2 error increases. There is a trade off between the two errors, type 1 and type 2 error, where decreasing the probability of one error increases the probability of another. Means, it is not possible to reduce both the errors simultaneously. Okay, it is not possible to reduce both the errors simultaneously, uh, because because uh, see, there is a trade-off between the two errors. Okay, where decreasing the probability of one error increases the probability of another. So thus, the depending on the type and nature of the test, the researcher need to decide the appropriate level of type 1 error after evaluating the consequences of errors. Okay, this is about the probability of type 1 error. The next concept is uh, type 1 error example. Okay, for this, let us take a hypothesis. Okay, the hypothesis is where a player is trying to find the relationship between him wearing new shoes and the number of wins for his team. Okay, here, if the number of wins for his team is more when he was wearing his new shoes is more than the number of wins for his team otherwise, he might accept the alternative hypothesis and determine that there is a relationship. However, students, the winning of his team might be influenced by just chance, okay, rather than his shoes, which results in type 1 error. Okay, in this case, we should have accept the null hypothesis because winning of a team might happen due to chance or luck. Okay, dear students, till now we discussed about introduction to means introduction relating to type 1 error, basic concepts concerning testing of hypothesis under that, under what is null hypothesis, what is alternative hypothesis, and what is level of significance, that is alpha. And later we discussed about meaning and definition of type 1 error, causes of type 1 error, probability of type 1 error, and example of type 1 error. Students, now it's time to end this session. Okay, so uh, conclusion. See, from the above discussion, we can conclude that in hypothesis testing, type 1 error is a very serious error, okay, compared to type 2 error. As a good researcher, he has to pay focus on type 1 error, that is falsely rejecting the null hypothesis. Okay, the probability of committing a type 1 error can be reduced by adjusting the value of okay alpha. Okay, that is the level of significance. See, students, these are all the reference books. Okay, you can refer these books for more information about above said topics. And apart from these book references, in the slides I have provided internet reference links also. Kindly make use of these links. Okay. Mm, Thank you all. Have a nice day.